Good, man. It's really weird. I just sat down and for whatever reason I thought I was supposed to put a seatbelt on. You know that feeling of like when you just like sit down, you're like, I was about to
Yeah,
reach
you're
for a
about
seatbelt for it was really weird. I don't know why that just happened.
No, it's okay. You buckle up, everybody. This is gonna be a big one. No. So how's everything out there in Kansas City?
Things are great here. I haven't really been here very much recently. I've been out on
Where
the
were you?
road doing things.
Where'd you just
I
get back?
went up north. Let's see, I just got back from Denver. I did a show out in Denver with some friends.
Yeah,
And
that's
that was a lot of fun. Ended up making it a little bit longer for like a extended weekend with my wife.
that sounds like fun.
But
That's awesome. Well, cool,
are
man.
we are we recording now or what's the deal?
Record it. I can do an intro if you want me to, just to kind of get everything set. I just kind of go with the vibe, but I mean that's up to you if you want me to go ahead and lay out an intro real quick and just kind of go with it.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just didn't know. I
No,
haven't done very many of these.
that's okay. No, usually I'll just start the podcast and then we just kind of talk and just kind of get everything settled in. But I've had one person's like, "Can you intro me in?" I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with that. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." So, but anyways, tell me about your Falling Dive. Tell me about your new album coming up right now. It's on pre-order on Bandcamp. Tell me about, the recording process and how it differs from your previous albums.
Well, a little bit about the album. It says it's in pre-order. It's kind of a weird situation that I have going on.
Yeah.
The album is finished. I have physical copies of the vinyl
Hmm.
that I sell at my shows.
Oh, cool.
I've only got 25 left.
Nice.
So I've sold quite a bit of them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm slow releasing singles
Mm,
because since I'm not on a label, um, I'm just kind of trying things differently from what I've done in the past.
right.
But back in the first two albums that we did, which I'll get to that because those were kind of an interesting thing too. We just kind of put them out and put everything out at the same time. Did a couple like videos here and there, but nothing really, just kind of just bulk, just put it out. So this time I'm actually making different versions of the second side of the album
Oh,
to
cool.
put out digitally. So that's why I'm kind of slow releasing things. I got put under the gun. So what happened was I got a really super great deal with a record pressing plant, and they said you need to have everything submitted by such and such time to partake of this like certain situation, this deal. So anything that people get on the vinyl record are going to be a little bit different than not bad, it's just different. So I didn't have enough time to really finish things the way I wanted them to get done. The first five songs, which I've slow released, are all on the first side of the album, with the exception of one song. And so basically what I'm doing now is I'm kind of going back through a few, like there's three songs in particular that I just kind of want to refine a little bit more, and they didn't fully meet my expectations as far as production. So I'm the producer. I engineer pretty much everything. I have some help, but for the most part, it all goes through me. It comes from me, and then it goes out from what I release. And this time, I wanted to have product, to sell for my tours and stuff, and I wanted to have this record done. So I went ahead and put out put it out the way it was. And now when I'm releasing things, they're gonna be a little bit better in my opinion. Everybody says they like it, but you know how it is.
Of course. Of course. So cool. Tell me about I mean, if you want to go into details of the recording process and the songwriting process of this new album, I mean, do you want to open up a little bit more about it, or you just kind of want to leave it more of a mystery?
No, sure. I would love to talk about it. So this album was actually kind of born of an interesting situation that occurred. So when we formed in 29, well, okay, let me start over. I've been doing this project since 2014.
Yeah.
but I wasn't very serious about it for a really long time. When I first started, I got a lot of help from a previous band that I was in. It's not worth going into all the back end stuff, but really popular band that I was in for a time, and used that name as kind of a way to like project this thing back in 2014. I wound up getting on tour with this band called Neon Indian, which is kind of like a synth pop band in the
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
late 2000s. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we did a little tour there, and it was like a 5 day thing, and it was really great. I basically just got on a leg of their tour, and then when we got back, the band member that I had that I started this project with decided he was going to do other things and be a big boy or whatever and not pursue music. So I kind of just went ahead and did other things, but I kept the project name alive. I kept playing shows every once in a while. Didn't really do much with it. Fast forward 2020, right before the pandemic,
Hmm.
I met another collaborator that I started working with. His name is Brody Lowe, and he was a transplant from the West Coast. And turns out we both had connections to Idaho, which we were both born and raised in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, but so we ended up collaborating, and so I made the first two records with him and a female vocalist, actually, because I was not really wanting to be a vocalist again. I wanted somebody else who I thought I could do a better job than me, and she's a really great lyricist, and she was doing a bunch of great things. And it was the pandemic, and we were all just kind of like, let's file share. So the first record was a file share album.
Well,
We
yeah.
ended up putting it out on vinyl, and it did really well. And slowly, as the band kind of started getting bigger and better and better, I also started realizing that the other two members really weren't they weren't in it for life like I am.
Sure, of
Like
course.
I'm a lifer musician.
Hmm.
This is my calling. This is my passion. This is what I do.
Of course.
They're they were really great, but I kind of just started realizing this wasn't really what they really wanted to do. Like
Of course.
they have other obligations.
Yeah.
So we released two albums, and they were really good. And I produced them both and engineered most of it. And kind of same process. So this time around, I had started accumulating song ideas, and every time I would get asked to do a really big show, because everything kind of, I was kind of like the hub, the leader, if you will, of the
Yeah, sure.
project, and I'd get show invites, and
Mhm.
a lot of them were really big bands that were, that we were getting asked to open for, and I kept having to say no because the others were, frankly, just uninterested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I finally had to draw the line in the sand last 2024, in January 2024. I was like, okay, well, what do you really want to do
Hmm. Of
to the others?
course.
One of them said, one of them said, I want to keep making music, but I don't really want to play shows. The other one said, I want to do studio stuff and I don't want to do shows.
Mm.
So basically, one said they want to keep making music, and the other one said they didn't really want to. And the shows weren't for them anymore. And that was the singer.
Yep.
So I decided at that moment, I was like, I'm accepting any show that comes up, and I'm just gonna see what happens. I have all these songs that I'm working on. I'm gonna see what happens. And I went through like a series of people that I tried to replace the vocalist with, like kind of keep trying the female vocalist thing, and nothing worked out. And finally, one day I was just sitting down here and just like, well, let me just try what happens. Let me see what happens if I sing a song, and let me see if I have it in me to do this again. Because I'd been a front person before, but I didn't really want to. And it just was kind of born out of just like pure, like, I am not gonna give up my dream. So I guess I'm gonna have to be the one that does it. So I started doing it, and here I am, and it's the best decision I've ever made. I think just going forward, jumping in, and that's kind of where the album title comes from.
Hmm.
It comes from this point of my music career last 2024 of January, where like I felt like I had all this momentum. We had a lot of things going for us. People really loved what we were doing, and all of a sudden these other two elements were just kind of gone, and I felt like I was kind of just free falling, like, oh no, what am I going to do now?
Of course.
So I turned that thing, that feeling of like, shit, what am I gonna do? And I turned it into like a dive, basically. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have some form to this, and I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm gonna dive right in. So that's where the album title came from, If You're Falling, Dive.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like I kind of see that is a theme for a lot of people, especially right now with the current state of just hellish shit that's going on all around us. Like,
absolutely.
if you don't dive into what you believe and what you think is right, then you're just falling. You're falling for other people's bullshit. You're free falling into whatever.
Sure.
Nothing's gonna matter. You got to turn this shit into a dive
Mhm.
and go for it and make a difference and make a point. And
Yeah,
so at that point, I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I made the whole album kind of about this
situation.
fire that I had situation. This kind of like everything was about more about existence than I'd ever really cared to really do, but now that's what it is. So,
Awesome. Cool. And what musically are you still kind of keeping with the same style and everything like that? Have you been kind of diving into other sounds or other genres? Like, are you any other
well,
influences that kind of captured your attention when it comes to recording this new album?
so the songs and the way that they're created has kind of been the same way for the I here's the thing. I took down all of the old stuff
Hmm.
from the first two albums with the other singer, and the style is all pretty much the same. It's kind of dark electronic,
Yep.
um, very much so influenced by things like Depeche Mode, New Order, The Cure, Killing Joke, Chameleons, Interpol, kind of like that dark, synth-heavy, somewhat guitar-centric. Before, I was not playing very much guitar, but now it's a little more guitar-centric, but still with the heavier synth, electronic drums. Everything's electronic, pretty much. When I play live, it's to myself and actually my family member, Sergio Anthony Gonzalez, who lives in Austin. He's my new touring bass player. So whenever I play live, I'm either playing by myself with a bunch of backing tracks or with him when he comes on the road with me for the longer tours. And he's been a huge godsend. Like, um, it's just amazing to be doing. Like, if you can't trust your family, who can you really trust? And it's been the perfect combination of everything. And he's a great person to have on the road with me. So, anyways, as far as the music's concerned, it's all kind of the same darker electronic, synth heavy. I use a lot of analog synths and a lot of mostly real stuff that isn't in like programs or whatever, like in the box, if you will. But I'm added a lot more of the guitar element because that's really my true voice is I'm a guitar player and that's where I started. So, you know, the new stuff is going to have a lot more guitar orientation to it than it did in the past. Other than that, it's all pretty much the same vein, darkwave, dark post-punk, electronic, synth heavy, but now with a little bit more guitar centric
Awesome.
vibe.
Cool. And then when you're going live, again, it's just you up on stage. Sometimes your brother would be what bass player, and then you're just kind of playing with backtrackings and stuff like that.
He's not my brother. He
All right, I thought you said brother. My bad. But yeah,
family member. He's a
family
family
member. There we
member.
go. Family member.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, that's okay. It's not a big deal, but he's like my brother. I mean, whatever. But yeah, so live guitar, live vocals, live bass,
cool.
a shitload of backing synths on backtracks and the drum machine. Like everything is kind of like backtracked that way. I have played a few shows with a real drummer
Hmm.
that does that will just play real drums over the electronic drums.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that.
I've done that a few times. I've also in the past had a synth player, this girl Laura Boland, who is we're still really good friends. She played synths and basically just played her parts on top of the already pre-recorded parts. So there's been a few little like weird kind of formations and iterations of what the band is live over the last year. Me trying to kind of figure out, well, what works, what doesn't work. who's available, who's not available, who wants to do this,
I
who wants to play all the shit that I wrote and not do their own thing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's been kind of like a year-long experiment to get to where I am right now.
mentioned.
And I feel like the live thing is kind of it's pretty much set. Like it's gonna be me and Sergio when he can do it. Otherwise, just I'll just do it by myself.
That's awesome. And does it feel
Everyone,
like a weight's lifted? Like you feel like you have more creative control and just a little bit more control of your touring aspects?
well, yeah, I mean, like for instance, this last show that I did last weekend, since Sergio lives in Austin, it didn't really make fiscal sense for me to be like, hey, fly up for this one show and then go back, So I can just jump in my car and book shows as a solo artist if I need to, and they go over really well. Everybody seems to be open to the idea, and when I have him with me, it's just that much more of a plus, And he's a production manager in Austin, and he does a lot of stage work. So having him on the tour is also not only just does my heart good just because he's family, but he's also just very, talented in many different areas of the business. So
Cool.
it's a good thing. So every once in a while, when I do a Kansas City show, my old synth player Brody Lowe, whom we used to write a lot of the music from the previous two albums, he'll step in and play bass because he's also a bass player when he's able. But he's got a fairly busy life with family and kids, and when he's able, he will. And I'm always willing to have him on board, no matter what. He's always going to be a part of the thing as much as he wants to or as he's able to.
Awesome. Cool. I have noticed a lot more, it's become a little bit more welcoming and for, bands to just kind of go, it's just me up on stage, I'm singing, got backtracks, got, a synth or whatever up on stage. Like at a time when I was kind of doing it here in St. Louis, it was like it didn't make sense because at the time it was like, oh, if you're not a DJ, then you're not doing electronic music. So, and I'm starting to see more artists out there that are, it's become more acceptable and more welcoming. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is great that, it's just one person up on stage just kind of doing their own thing and singing and playing synths or, backtracks or drum machine, MPC or whatever it is. It's just like, this is cool. Like it feels like it should have been like this all along.
Right. It's been very empowering, I will say, because I have been in bands much of my life where, when I first moved to Kansas City, I was in this indie band that got kind of big in the early 2000s, and we were on a label, and we did a bunch of tours. We did full band tours with a big old van, and never made any money because it was just so expensive. Even though we were on a label, we were right at that era where it was right before Facebook and right kind of during MySpace, and the networking idea and aspect that we have now is was non-existent. So it was kind of like, oh, you just go out there and hopefully you get booked with a decent band, and there was no way of really knowing. And so most of our tours were flops. That kind of thing just kind of repeated itself in my life over and over again. And I'll always be in bands as much as I can because I do love being in a real band. It's fun. And I'm in a couple bands here in Kansas City that do things, and they don't aspire to get out and do what I'm doing with Red or Moon per se, but it is very fulfilling being in those bands and just having that energy of and the synergy happening of all the electricity and the just like the minds and everybody doing the same thing. But as far as doing this thing, it's been the most, like you said, weight off my shoulders. I can make all the decisions in a snap. I can just be like, yes, no, that doesn't work. This does work. Or, I can make all the calls and be like, yeah. And I've managed to do the things that I've just, in my mind, I've always thought that makes sense to me, but you had to go through four other people or three other people just to like
Yeah,
get
like
an agreement, and then all by that point, that by the time anybody makes a decision, it's the time the past is gone and the opportunity is gone. So it's like this is like I'm just like firing off things here and there, left and right. Okay, yes, I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to. and I'm able to do it that way. And having Sergio on board to help me out live has just been really awesome because all he really wants to do is just play. And he's got his own projects in Austin, and he's in the same situation where nobody there really goes out of town to do anything. So this is an opportunity for him as well to experience, and it's great. I'm happier than I ever have been, albeit later in life. Sometimes I kind of ask myself, well, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point? And then I guess the point is to just, you know, keep creating art because art is the language. Music is the language that is louder than bombs. It's louder than hate. It's louder than fascism. It's louder than all the bullshit around us.
Yeah.
And if I don't do it, then I'm just going to wither away. I feel like, I'm just going to wither away and I won't know if I really did what I was supposed to do on my time here on Earth. And I know that sounds kind of like weird or kind of stupid to say, but I mean, it's like really this is what I'm here to do and I'm going to do my best.
No, that's it, absolutely because I mean it's I think we all, I mean, everybody that I've talked to, even just for me alone, it's like you always have that internal battle where you're creative, you have the urge, you have the need and the ability, and it's almost like when you don't create, you start to get restless. You start the ideas start building up, but then you don't release them, and it just feels like you get clogged mentally. But then on the other side, you're going, why do I keep doing this? Like, what is the point? Am I achieving like what? But so it's just like, and of course you got that internal battle, but then it's like if I create, I'm putting things out there, there's love, there's togetherness, there's this just, I mean, you're helping weed out the bullshit that's on the online, that's on the media, that's in the news, that's, you know, coming out of people's mouths and stuff. It's just like there's love and joy that's coming out of you that you want to just keep creating. You know what I mean? Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. You defined it right there. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, you know, every artist goes through the internal battle where it's just like, just why am I doing this? I should just quit. There's no point, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, you know what? There's the need, there's the urge, there's the somebody's going to get something out of this if I just keep going. And it could, you know, musically, do you feel like, have you had like a response where there's people that are like, you know what? Your music has saved my life. Have you gone through that sort of process at all?
I don't think anyone said that it saved their lives yet, but that would be really honoring for me for to hear that at some point. But I have had people say that what I'm doing now is the probably the best thing they've ever heard me do. Um, People that have known me for a while and know where my lineage of music comes from. It always stems from this kind of same feel with the like darker pop, post-punk type of a thing. And I've gone through waves of different types of music that I've played, prog rock, shoegaze, garage rock. Like I've done everything really that has guitar in it, every style, aside from mariachi or or like country or anything like that, which I would love to be able to do those at some point. I'm also a shitty jazz musician. I can't do that either.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I have gotten a lot of people say out of the blue, like as this thing continues to grow, it's now moved past my small bubble of people that usually follow me on Instagram and it's grown exponentially over the last year, just from releasing these songs and having more connections and more willingness to try to get out and do things and to say and be a part of things now that the reach is a lot further. And some of those people have reached out, whether it's like from a story repost or a comment on a new single or things like that, and letting me know that what I'm doing is making a difference in their lives. Nobody's really said it saved my life, whatever. And I,
I know what you
what, but
mean.
But that in itself is are the little nuggets of fuel that I'm just like, oh, I'm doing something right. I'm gonna keep doing it, and thank you for telling me. And I'm extremely humbled right now because I have been able to share the stage with so many great bands over the last year. And I just made a post about this recently that my new favorite bands now are the bands that I have played with because not only because am I just getting exposed to new music that I wouldn't normally have been exposed to, but the connection that I'm able to make with these bands in real time in real life and to just see from one face to another, like we're all out here together trying to do the same thing. And I know it's been a thing that every band does that, but for me to be directly involved and seeing it firsthand and being a part of it firsthand, it's been really nourishing to my soul. It's been really uh, it gives me hope and it gives me the reason to keep going out there to do it, and meeting just like sometimes there's like 5 people that, come and talk to me. Sometimes there's 100, and it's just like this, and it doesn't matter, and it's just a number to me, but what's more important is that that number is actually an individual person behind every single one of them that I get to meet and be a part of their lives for a brief 35 minutes or however long, I get to play. And it's been really great.
Yeah, it's been a great community. And even just Mid Midwest is kind of funny because it's like Chicago's always kind of been the sort of Midwest mecca. You know what I mean? Where music, I mean, that's kind of the sort of Midwest version of New York or you
Mm.
know, Texas, Dallas, or LA or whatever. So when I'm hearing bands, Kansas City, St. Louis, Minnesota, stuff like that, where there's a scene building and it's going to other cities and states and stuff and kind of planning their routes and stuff like that. It's like, finally there's something happening, and I love what's going on right out there in Kansas City. Like, it's reassuring and refreshing, and I'm so glad to see you part of that. I think that's amazing.
We have a good little scene going on here. It is small. It's a little insular at times, but it's done me very well to get out
Yeah,
and do and try to see what else is out there, because you can only play in your own hometown for so many times before that old saying is it's so true. Like a prophet is without honor in their own hometown, so whatever I'm trying to like do, I can only do it so many times here before everybody's like, yeah, that guy again. But the community that we do have here is really really supportive of one another, a lot more than it ever has been. In the past, it's
that's
been
true.
a little bit weird, but recently I think we're all kind of starting to realize like we're all in this together. All we have is each other. And I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. I see that every time I go out on the road and I'm like, look at the person left to you, look at the person to your right. These are your people. Even if you don't know who they are personally, get to know them because those are the people that are probably going to stand by you because you guys are here for the same reason. And that reason goes deeper than just being physically here. Like you must believe something very similar to be here in the same moment in time. So it's not a coincidence, it's synchronicity in so all we have is each other. And once that each other gets deeper and deeper and thicker, then we can really start to make a difference. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of what the that's kind of the thing that I've been trying to do here and being selfless, and just being like, okay, well, I'm going to promote all these other bands playing here. Why? Because we're all in this together. Like it doesn't matter. Like what I'm doing is just a drop in the bucket if I don't have you guys.
Of course.
So,
Is there
uh,
any bands that you've been touring with that you want to promote or talk about, or even just share any stories or moments that you have with them?
well, I haven't really gone out on any long tours with anybody, but we've been doing these kind of like preliminary things where in each city I'm been able to be lucky enough to handpick and be parts of like little pockets of community. So, I mean, I can tell you a little bit about every single band that I liked that we played with, but that might take a little bit too much time. And I think the more important thing is that I I think they all feel the same way that I do, that we're all in this together, and that all we have is each other.
Yeah.
And I will say, let's see, let me think of a when we were in Chicago, that was a really cool show because I mean they were all really cool shows. I have
Yeah.
not one of them was bad. But one in particular, it resonated with me a little bit more because it was an all Latino Gothic night.
Cool. Thank you.
So
Glad to hear that. Yes.
every band that we played with were all like Latin origin,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was super cool, and everybody was like, all the bands were awesome.
Definitely.
We played with Grave Love.
Ooh,
Check those guys out. They're super cool from Chicago. And Fantasma Negra, super cool post-punk band also. And there was a DJ that kind of played in between. His name was Leo Polo. They all have Instagram accounts that are linked to every time I played a show recently, I make a reel and I try to show a little bit about my experience in each city, every band that we played with. So if you're out there and you were curious about these bands that I'm getting booked with, the best way to do that is to go to my Instagram page and just kind of check out the reels because I've made very tailored reels to each of the cities that we've been to recently and kind of like a gratitude, thank you type of a deal and shout out to every band that we played with because they're the ones that made it possible for us to be there. So they deserve more of the attention than I probably do at that point. But so it's been really good, and that was a really cool show. Then the very next night we played in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I had no idea what to expect there, but this guy that I met online was in this band called Cloudmaker. Super cool, like he had this wall of analog synths, and I was just like drooling the whole time. So it's just like he brought all of his analog synths with him and he had a guitar player and this really super sick light show and they were super nice. They did this goth night for World Goth Week and they had us headline. I was like, "Are you sure you want us to headline? You know, like you guys look like you're kind of way bigger and better than us. Are you sure you want us to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely. You're the focal point of this thing." And I was just kind of like, "Oh shit. Okay." That was a fun, super fun night. That was probably the most fun that we had actually with the crowd interaction because everybody was just like in our face and the house was packed. Everybody bought a shitload of merch. It was just so much fun. Those guys are so sweet. Um, like I said, I had no idea what to expect from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Like
I, I had
it
no
was
idea.
pretty,
Cool.
yeah, it was awesome. And actually, the very next night, we were supposed to play in St. Louis, and that show got bumped for whatever reason. And so we were going to play at a place called Marshmallow. I've never been there, but
I'll admit, yeah, it's good.
is it a cool spot? Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great spot. Amazing. Yeah, a
Um,
lot more bands are starting to go over there now. I think it's fantastic. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned you're from St. Louis because I've had a really hard time trying to get something
okay.
booked there, like yeah, like it's just I feel like I keep getting like a runaround there from all these different
I'll hook up somebody for you. Yeah. So let me go ahead and take a note, and then I'll send you some information to someone you can connect with. That there is a goth like venue, goth night. They'll have something always going on, so I'll send you that information. So
Well, that'd be great. And I mean, honestly, like we get kind of put into this goth thing, probably a little more so than what expected.
okay.
But like I feel like it's kind of like a gothic new wave post-punk really is really what I'm after and what I've been trying to kind of do. But we're happy to play any of those kind of
They kind of
events.
they've branched out. Like they'll have industrial nights, they'll have post punk. Like they're that sort of shoegaze. They're a wide range, but they definitely try and keep within and try and do what they can to bring more uh, you know, uh, artists in and acts and stuff like that. And so it's kind of hard because everybody that I've kind of talked to have been like, well, St. Louis, they're not always welcoming. Whether you got to be like a punk band, indie band, you know, rapper, whatever it may be. And it's just one of those things where I think it's a slow process here in St. Louis, but I think there's kind of a ball rolling a little bit more. And I've been really trying to do what I can to go try to push more people towards St. Louis because I really want to see you guys. I'm just like, so
I would really love to be there, and I thought for a while I was like, oh, maybe it's because I'm from Kansas City. Like it's just
oh
like screw these Kansas City dudes.
no,
But
no, we're
you know,
all family here, yeah. So
no, I know I'm just kind of joking about that.
no,
But
you're
like,
good.
you'd love to come back out. I know I have something in Indianapolis in November that actually would make complete 100% sense for me to try to stop in St. Louis on the way there the day before. So maybe I'll try to hook something up there and we can come back out.
I'll send some information for you. Are you comfortable diving into backstory, kind of how you grew up and, how you started getting involved in music and what bands you were listening to? Do you want to go into that? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whatever you want to talk to me about, I'm here
Start,
for.
start at the
How?
beginning. You said you grew up in Idaho, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
So start
born.
there, family life, how you got involved in music, stuff like that. Go ahead and start wherever you give people some backstory.
Sure. Let's see. Born and raised to Mexican American parents in rural Idaho. I'm a, let's see, I'm a third generation American. My grandparents, well, maybe I'm second. I can't remember how it works, but I think my grandparents were immigrants, from Mexico, which on my dad's side, they actually came from Spain to Mexico and then from Mexico. So like four generations back, Spaniard. And my mom, I'm not really sure, like they didn't keep track. But born and raised in a little tiny rural town called Rupert, where I still have family. My oldest brother lives there still to this day. And just a small farming community of about 4,000 people.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
It just happens to be where my mom's family landed to work in the fields and things like that when they were in the 60s, and the 70s. Same with my dad. Their families just kind of ended up going there, and then they met and had me and my older brothers and sister. I was just kind of the last one, kind of an accident, if you will. I know a lot of people say that, but I mean, I think I was because like my other siblings are so much older than me, which is honestly kind of why I call my bass player family member. I call him my family member because it's so confusing because we're so close in age. He's actually my nephew,
Oh, cool.
but I just say family member or cousin when we're on the road because it's just people are like, what? You have to go through this whole
Hey,
explanation.
don't go through the lineage yet.
It's annoying. So, anyways,
Yeah.
uh, so I don't know. I guess both my parents are artists, like painter types, builder types. They just all were always building things or painting things or making something better. Classic kind of like first generation post-immigrant mindset, like be the best you can possibly be and be creative at the same time and work as hard as you can type of deal. So that all that stuff, along with the artistic thing, was instilled in me. And I was kind of like the first generation in the family to have the choice to do what I wanted to do to instead of working in the fields, or whatever, I was given the opportunity to pursue the American dream and the things that would make, you happy or whatever for whatever reason. So I gravitated towards music at a very young age. Like I remember being 5 years old and hearing What's Love Got to Do with This by Tina Turner on the radio and just like going to my room and for whatever reason, like just sitting on my bed, I can vividly remember sitting on my bed, legs crossed, Indian style, singing that song, and then for some strange reason crying because the music was so good. Like, that's love got to do. Like, just being this little kid, my mom coming in, like, what's wrong, mijo?
Yeah.
What's going on? I'm like, I don't know. That song was just so awesome. Like being like this 5-year-old kid, just the music like moving me. So at that moment, I kind of knew like, okay, well, and I was always paying attention. You know, I grew up in one of those weird kind of Pentecostal churches where
Mhm.
there's like bands that play loud, you know, and it was Spanish and English. So it's like this loud music playing every Sunday at church with full band and everybody's real charismatic there because that's kind of what they did, you
Of
know,
course.
like everybody goes nuts and spins around in circles and does all that
Yeah.
stuff. And
In there. Yep.
so
Yep.
like I'm like exposed to all these like things at a young age, being like, well, that's how music moves a crowd. This is how I feel. Like I want to do that too. So I had a cousin who was a little older than me and was the drummer in one of the church bands, and I was just always watching him. I want to be a drummer, Dad. I want to be a drummer. So my dad bought me a drum set from the pawn shop, and I can play drums. That was my technically my first instrument, but I didn't really. I wasn't. I mean, I can play. I'm just not as good as I probably should have been.
Yeah,
So
well,
what happened was, you know, my parents got sick and tired of hearing the drums because they were so loud. So they're like, let's move you to another instrument. How about the trumpet? Well, little did they know that I could blast that thing. So
yeah.
I started blasting the trumpet in school. They didn't offer drums in school where I grew up, so it was kind of like all orchestral type stuff. And whatever drums they did have didn't appeal to me. They were just like xylophones and
Bass drum
you know,
snare.
kind of boring stuff that
Triangle.
I want to play the whole kit if I'm going to do it. If I'm not, I want to play a lead instrument. So I played the trumpet. That's where I kind of learned how music works. And
Yeah.
I had a really, really awesome music teacher all throughout junior high, Mr. Lasnik. He was an immigrant himself of like Eastern European descent, and he kind of like we just bonded in weird ways. And he saw a talent in me and kept me like on my toes, even though I was a punk ass troublemaker. I was a really horrible troublemaker in junior high. Like I was just kind of like doing anything I could to be heard because in my community, I was an extreme minority. So I turned to performance and I turned to comedy
Oh,
and troublemaking
yeah.
to
Class clown. Yeah.
to be exactly to be
I've been
heard
there. I was there. Yep. Yep.
and to feel like above just being called this brown guy, this brown kid, you know, because that was a pretty big thing in my hometown. You know, it was either you're either like a farmer kid that was rich because his farmer parents were rich,
Mhm.
or you were the worker in that farmer who wasn't rich and you were brown. And my family had managed to move up and out of that thing, and we were kind of like semi-educated. Um, so I was kind of always stuck in the middle. Like I wasn't brown enough, but I wasn't white enough. And I was just kind of like this coconut kid, you know, like brown on the outside, white on the inside growing up. And so like I turned to music and performance to kind of like maybe shield me from a lot of that like unknown area, the things that made me feel weird. Like this doesn't make me feel right. So I chose to pursue music as a means, you know. So um I just pursued music. I was in my first band, went from trumpet to learning how to play guitar. And I was in my first band when at the age of 13, and it was like heavy metal was my first true love. So I think my first song I ever learned was Iron Man by Iron Maiden or by
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. And you know, so it was that kind of deal all through junior high and high school and just like joining bands here and there and just kind of not really like always felt feeling like the other band members were not really trying as hard as I was, and so like I just kept moving from thing to thing to thing. And finally I got exposed to this church band that came through. They were with this organization called YWAM, and it was like Youth with a Mission, and they were just like so cool. And I was like, how can this church thing be cool? You know, because I was just like I'm only in church and youth group to check out chicks, like this is the only
Yeah.
reason why I was here. But then this band came through and they were actually kind of cool and they were like this emo band and this was like late 90s, I guess. And I was like, I want to do that. My parents already told me they were like, if you know, we can't pay for you to go to college, but you can probably get loans and all this stuff and go to college. And I was just like, man, I'm not really academic, I don't really care too much. I just want to play music. And they were like, okay, well, if you want to go do this thing with YWAM, we will support you and pay for half of it. So I was like, okay. And I went and worked in this sugar beet thing, the sugar beet dump thing that like you work for like 6 weeks straight and you make all this money and it's like $5,000 in this crazy amount of time. In the late 90s, that was like a lot of money. So I did that and went and managed to get accepted into this like music group thingy that toured around and played and wound up going all over the world. While all my peers were in college, in my early 20s, I was going and playing in Brazil. I
Wow.
was in Poland. I was in India. I was in Japan. I was doing all these like crazy like things with these bands that were kind of like cover bands, but we do some originals here and there. And we all used the same kind of like it was the same deal. Like you use music medium to raise awareness.
Of course.
It's kind of like a relief aid thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain what it is. Like
I know what you
you
mean, because I grew up in the church, so I understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like mission trips, but it really wasn't. Like because we were playing music this whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did that for while everyone else was in college. I did that for 4 years and finally got tired of it. Started seeing too much hypocrisy
Mhm. Oh yeah.
uh, behind the veil. I was like, ah, fuck this. I'm done
Yeah,
with
I'll go into
this.
that later. Yeah, go ahead.
So I wound up here in Kansas City because one of the guys that I had done my first trip with landed here and he started a band and they were like this new metal band and this was like in the early 2000s and he's like we need a bass player and I'm still like, I'm thinking about going back to college and he's like well we have this arena tour in the Midwest. I'll pay for you to come out and do this thing with us for a summer. I was like okay and then I come back and I'll go to college.
Yeah, sure.
Made that agreement with my parents, like so I came out here and I was like yeah this is kind of cool and there's something different about being here. Maybe I'm sick of traveling, but oh, also there's this really hot girl that I really like here. So I stayed in Kansas City. And one thing led to another. I just kept getting more and more intertwined in the music scene here. I joined that band that I was talking about earlier that got signed and did some stuff on MTV when MTV was still kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
right at the end of that, and one I just kept on being part of the community here and slowly and slowly I just got more and more stuck in Kansas City. I never went back to Idaho. I never went to college until much later. I finally finished some college, and here I am. And I'm a lifer. I'm always going to be pursuing music, especially now. There's no reason for me not to. So that's kind of like the short and the long of my my journey to being where I am now. I guess there's a whole lot more, but my mouth is getting dry, so.
Oh, you're good. I get it. And I mean, that's a lot of detail. And I mean, I understand the church thing because out here we have a mega church. And it was one of those where we grew up in the mega church. So it was like, so I did a lot of volunteer work and stuff like that for them. And eventually I started playing drums and then I think we were like at some church camp thing and then they're like, "Oh, hey, some guy was a guitar player. Hey, we need a drummer, for a talent show." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So I started doing that. Luck has it that the pastor and his wife and his son were there and they saw me play and they're like, "Hey, we need a drummer for this." So I started doing like a lot of drumming, with youth groups and college groups and stuff like that. And then so I started kind of getting more involved there. And then again, I did start seeing the hypocrisy and just everything behind the veil, and it was just like, okay, I gotta wash my hands of this and just kind of walk away from it, just because it was like, oh, okay, this is not. I'm not comfortable here. I don't feel,
Yeah.
and I've always kind of wrestled with that sort of, uh, I've always been grew up very religious, kind of spiritual, and then there's always been me wrestling with Christianity and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't hate church, I don't hate religion, I don't hate Christianity, but again, it's me wrestling with just personal beliefs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Same here.
And but I mean, you came out of a pretty major area of, music and stuff I mean, what bands were you kind of, was it just like a group where you guys played like DC Talk or like, MXPX type stuff, or what kind of music were you guys playing on the road?
So for that thing, it was all top 40, but like on the more of the alternative grungy edge.
Okay.
Um, so like we would play, stuff that was recognizable because I think that's what would initially get people's attention when we
Okay, gotcha.
so things like Bush and
Okay, so secular music. Gotcha. Okay,
all
got.
secular.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean there was a few things that we would throw in there like I don't know if you've ever heard of Grandma Train.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we would play like a couple Grandma Train songs or just kind of like some weird, more obscure like Christian alternative stuff. But it was mostly secular stuff. And then we throw some originals that were definitely not secular. So it was kind of like, like there was this kind of like we are trying to balance the attention getting stuff that was also fun to play with. Okay, well, we have to meet this quota of this stuff to put in here too, So it's kind of like that. So I got a lot of my chops from playing, a lot of the secular alternative stuff of the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's, where I mean, I was like, even before that, I was pretty good. But I mean, after that, I know how to be on the road type of good. I know what to do. And I took that with me. And that was like a very valuable learning tool, learning experience. Because I mean, some of those times, for instance, that Brazil trip, the very first one I did, we were there for 8 weeks.
Wow,
And yeah, it was awesome. And we played sometimes twice a day.
that's awesome.
And they were in really amazing, weird locations. Like I remember it was really crazy. Like we would go to like a prison and
Yeah.
we would play in a prison and then like 4 hours later we're playing in like an all girls middle school and getting like Beatles type treatment. Like that part was weird. They would like scream and like push down barriers to get to us and all this crazy stuff. So it was like, there's this weird like rush of like weird experiences and having to set up and tear down and set up and tear down and turn on the performance, turn off the performance. And I did all this for 6, 7 weeks straight. We had a week off. We got to go to Rio de Janeiro and just kind of lounge around and go to the beach and stuff. But for the most part, I mean, I was playing like every single day for 6 weeks, sometimes twice a day, traveling in these little vans going. Sao Paulo is a huge city, and it's like sometimes we were in the van for 4 hours just to get to the other side of the city.
Ah,
And that's ridiculous, like thinking about that. But like that's how big it was. And so I had all these really great experiences that like kind of molded me and made me really like, oh, I have to keep doing this is what I love this, I love this is what I have to do. And so that's kind of like a reawakening right now of being on the road.
yeah.
I mean, I toured quite a bit in the early 2000s with the one band. Um, and then I stopped touring for a really long time. And so now I'm just kind of like reawakening it back up again. I'm like, okay, yeah, here it is. It never left. Like I love doing this and I'm going to continue to do it.
Oh yeah, dude. That sounds fantastic. I'm gonna kind of start getting into the creative process. So you have a very cinematic, atmospheric sound. What usually comes first when you're kind of building a song? Is it the mood, the melody, lyrics, or just something else entirely?
Well, yeah, that's kind of an interesting process for sure. And I don't think I have a specific formula, but I will say that a lot of times I will have like a part that either comes out like sporadically and I'll be down in my studio and I'm like, okay, I'm going to record that. And it's kind of usually born of this flood of emotion, maybe that I might be going through at the time. So I tend to kind of like write these little pieces here and there that are born of certain emotion, and then I'll build on top of the music. And once I feel like the music has a structure per se, then I'll be like, okay, well, what was I really feeling when I started this little piece? And then I'll start to kind of like chisel away at a theme of what lyrically could be talked about, or why I was feeling the same, why I was feeling this thing at this time, what was I going through? And so then I'll build the song around that. It never, I don't think it's never once started with me writing down lyrics
Mm.
and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna write a song about this thing."
Right.
It's always the other way around. I'll write a song, a piece of music born of an emotion that I might be experiencing. Then once that thing is kind of the backdrop is painted, I'll be like, oh, wow, okay, what, then the lyrics come, and then the whole thing coagulates, and then I get to be kind of like this like director to myself, of this whole vibe. So, you know, with the last album that I did, I would say about 90% of it is just that. And then there was a couple of songs that um I had some collaborators that I worked with. Guy Jason Scott in Chicago, actually. He's a video game guy. He makes video games or video game music, one of the two. I can't remember. It might be both.
Yeah.
But we were talking one day online, and I was just like, man, I'd like to come up to Chicago, blah, 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 and play some music. If you want to do some stuff together, that's cool. And he's like, well, I'm really busy, but I got these like skeletons of these songs. You can just have them if you want to try to do something with them. I was like, okay, cool. Let me see what you got. So he sent them to me, and a couple of the songs made the album, and they're amazing. I mean, obviously, like manipulated them and changed the instrumentation and stuff, but they initially came from his like ideas, and then that was, I really love it when that happens because I really love collaborating with people, and it also just gives me like more of an opportunity to really view the bigger picture, even if I just see like a small part of it. Sometimes when I'm starting from absolute scratch, it's like a lot more work for me to just be like, oh, where am I gonna go with this thing? So I do have some collaborators that I do work with. There's also this guy in Los Angeles that he gave me a couple of ideas that he started, and I just basically just reworked them and made them, you know, into what you might be hearing on some of my Spotify songs. But it's just a process, and it's all part of the thing that I love doing.
Absolutely. I mean, with your story, you've talked about playing various genres of music from different bands and stuff like that. What really drew you towards the post-punk, dark wave, goth style, where it was like, this is where I feel like I'm home? What was that process like?
Well, I've always, for as long as I can remember, been like more of a melancholy type of persona
Sure,
where I really like it's kind of either I'm super melancholy or I'm making jokes about
sure, yeah.
something or laughing about something. So it's kind of like a lot like Robert Smith, where he's kind of like known to be this darker, kind of brooding figure, but if you talk to him in real life, he's just always joking about stuff. And I really connected with that as a child, and even as hearing I remember the first time I heard Love Song by The Cure, and I was probably like a teenager or something, and I just remember hearing that song very, very specifically going, there's something kind of really melancholily beautiful about this particular thing. And so that was my love for The Cure came from, which is my all-time favorite band for sure. So I remember even just being a kid and just like connecting with the melancholy and just I think that was always a part of who I was because of the other backdrop of my existence of being, Mexican American and predominantly, you know, whatever. It was kind of a weird community that I grew up in. It's predominantly Mormon, really, actually. But anyways, so I always gravitated towards the kind of the darker. It started with heavy metal because I was angsty, like
Yeah,
Metallica, Iron Maiden,
yeah,
all that. That's where I learned to play guitar, like
yeah.
they gave me my chops.
That's cool.
I went straight in heavy metal skateboarder, hardcore, I didn't really like hardcore music, but I really loved thrash metal. And like then I went to grunge and then it got weaker and weaker as I got older. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm gonna go back to my roots, my early 20s. I started listening to Joy Division again. I started listening to The Cure again. I started to really tap into that. So that band that I was telling you about that I was in here in Kansas City, I'll tell you the name is Elevator Division. And it was very much so cinematic, indie, post-punk,
Yeah.
early like
Then in the midst of the revival where everybody, she wants revenge type of, Interpol and stuff like, was that in the middle of that whole? Yeah.
yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
we were booked with we played some shows with a lot of those major bands back in the day, so like we're talking like 2001 to
Yeah, I
2006.
remember those. Yeah.
That's, we were booked with Interpol. I remember we were supposed to open up for Interpol, but then the booker saw that we had another show like 2 weeks before, so we got pulled from that. But basically, like those are the kind of bands that we were, doing that kind of stuff with. And so that, like it's always been a part of my professional career to kind of gravitate towards that sound, that feel, the Chameleons were also like a huge thing for me. They were like really obscure. That's the band that influenced Interpol for the most part, so um as I progressed after that band, I started dabbling in other things, like I was in this prog rock band called Benon for a really long time, who kind of like regionally popular for being involved with the Flaming Lips over the years. And was in that band for quite some time, did weird prog rock type stuff, a lot of synthesizers, a lot of guitars. Other band, like it kind of just ran the gamut of kind of like the darker guitar driven stuff. But then when I started rehashing this Redder Moon thing back in 2019, 2020, like I really was like, okay, well, I had plenty of time to realize like I wasn't really wanting to be in like that kind of band anymore. I'm gonna pare things down. I'm gonna go back to my extreme roots of the really kind of darker, melancholy, synth-driven stuff that always kind of got me going from childhood up until my early professionalism. So that's kind of where that came from. And I just decided, like, okay, I'm going to listen to this inner voice. I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to make it my voice extended outwardly, coming out with this new line of albums or this new line of songs for my album and so forth. So it was just kind of like an extension of who I already was, that I really wasn't kind of like following until now.
No, that's great. Um, what, hmm, I'm trying to find the right word. What does that sort of emotional tone come from? That is it personality or artistically, or is it just a little bit of both?
I think it's definitely a little bit of both. As I was explaining, over the years, I've always had like people that were either I was intimately involved with or, just friendships over the years. They're like hinting on the fact that I'm a Gemini, and there's like kind of two personalities always at war within myself, and one of them is that class clown, and the other one is this like deeply sensitive, person that just wants to be heard, And I get choked up every time thinking about that part of me because I feel like that's the part of me that is really going to reach the people who also need to hear that. And I can joke about the other shit on the side. It's like, but yeah, I guess it's just a combination of those two, the Geminitic person that I am, I guess, like I always had like girlfriends over the years, like, man, you're a crazy Gemini. You got two people living in you. I'm like, well, maybe I do, I guess. It's one more than you.
Right. What do you want people to take away from your music?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that there's always going to be a shard of light in the dark. There's always going to be a sliver of dark in the light. And what we do with those moments in our lives, I hope it reflects on the positive nature of humanity. Um, I hope that these songs somehow express that. It takes all kinds of people to exist, and whether you're marginalized or not, um, the music is there for everyone. It's there for all of us to enjoy and to hopefully find that voice within one another to help one another along in the hard times and the dark times. And it's okay to be in the dark,
Of course.
like I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be, making the dark stuff for people to help. When I was in the darkness, I reached out for that. So that's if I can do that for anyone else, like this sounds really like, but there were times when I would just like listen to the album Pornography or Disintegration by The Cure, and I was feeling so just like out of place in life or just so distraught with my existence. And I would hear these tones and these voices and these words, and I would immediately be transported to a place of comfort within the melancholy. And that's kind of what I want to do, and that's what I hope to do. And I really hope that I'm able to do that. That's really my only goal is to be a similar type voice for anyone else who might be having a hard time or going through something, whatever it is. If it's hard, turn to the music that makes you feel like it's okay.
Of course, absolutely. Um, I don't know if you're comfortable with this. Tell me about your thoughts and feelings about the current situation going on with, the political and, the social and everything that's going on with ICE. Are you comfortable with talking about that and having a platform to express thoughts and feelings on something like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been brewing quite a bit
Yeah.
recently. Being of Mexican American descent, I'm really kind of like 1 degree closer than anybody else from experiencing some sort of, you know, it could be me next, I could get targeted even just because I'm
Yeah.
of brown descent or whatever. So, a lot of the stuff that's happening, I just actually made a post today. I feel like a lot of the reason that there's a lot of hate towards immigrants of any color, really, I think it's just an immigrant thing, honestly. But um, it's just easy to pick on the weaker ones immediately. But it's a mirror. I think the thing is, it's a mirror. The people who are here to work and to they work hard, like they're better workers, they're better lovers, they're better family people. And I think that mirror is so bright in so many of the people that are for ICE and blanket statement conservatives, MAGA, whatever. Um, the mirror is so bright that you can't stand to see it.
Of course, yeah.
These people are just here. to make a better life for themselves, and they're doing a better job at it
Yeah,
than anybody else. And they don't like seeing that. It's like, oh, you're gonna steal my whatever. But it really what it is you're seeing yourself and you're a shitty person compared to them.
yep,
And
absolutely.
so that mirror is just so bright in their minds that they can't handle it. And so their one thing is let's get rid of them. Get them out of here so we don't have to see this light anymore.
No, you're
So
right.
those are my thoughts. It's like just be a better person yourself
Yeah.
and you might not care. You
Mhm.
might not even, you might find that you don't care that there's somebody else out there trying to do a better job at life. Maybe do the same work. So,
Go
you know,
through it.
and that's like metaphorically and physically, like I don't see you out there picking apples in the heat. I also don't see you doing the spiritual work that it might take for you to be a better person.
Right.
So, it's like there's a lot of that stuff going around, obviously, because it's right in the forefront of our society right now, and it's really ugly. It's really unfortunate and really ugly. But it's going to take us a lot to backpedal from this. I have no idea what it's going to look like or if it's repairable. But I use my voice now to speak up about it as much as I can when I'm playing shows, and it's the whole thing. Look to your left, to your right. Those are the people that are going to be there for you, and if they're not, then try to love them regardless. But this is where we're at in our society, and it's a pretty sad state to be in right now. It's not what I grew up thinking I was going to end up.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's embarrassing, and it's seeing stuff like this where, you know, being up, I kind of live in like a sort of small townish kind of, white kid. And it's just like, and I see a lot of that stuff around my community. And it's just like these people being conservative Christian type. I'm like, how are you taking the teachings that you grew up and were raised on and being, you're supposed to learn agape love and understand your fellow man and stuff like this, but then you're seeing it and you're raising your fist and getting angry, and it's like all that influenced by, the president who's in power. It's scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, that's like I was saying, it's that mirror, like they can't stand to see that it's not them anymore. It's these other people that are better than them. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that like in any kind of condescending way. It's just like these people are just better humans, really, and they can't stand to see it. So they get up in arms and hate is the only thing, it's the easiest thing for them to turn to. So that if they're gonna go there, that's what a weak person does. They go for the easiest method. And it's really sad. It's really depressing. And I hope that somehow that we can find our way out of this because that's not what we're supposed to be all about. Even as a general blanket humanity, that's not what we're here to do. At the end of the day, you don't get to take anything with you.
No, not at all.
Nothing. But what you have to show at the end is how much did you love?
Absolutely. And do you think stuff like that has influenced you musically and maybe even the future of Red or Moon?
Absolutely. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where my path will lead me, but all I know is that I have decided to take every opportunity that I can possibly take that makes sense. Sometimes even if it doesn't make sense, but and use my voice. I mean, I'm not out there preaching really per se. I'm not out there, evangelizing for whatever purpose.
Yeah.
And I use those words because we both understand what that means. And there's no way that I'm not religious by any means at this point in my life, but I mean those terms and like, okay, I'm not out there like there's bands that I played with and bless because I don't have the courage to do it, but like Vision Video is a really good example.
I loved him. He was great on my podcast. I love that dude.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, we've been friends for a while now, and I played with him every time they come through town, and with the exception of maybe once or twice. And I'm inspired every single time I watch the show and I see his message, and I'm like, God, I wish I had the balls to say that. Not only that, but I just don't have the words and the eloquency to express that from stage. So I'm going to do it in my own way. And my own way is a little different. But
So that's
I
great.
take from, in fact, I will say that I played with Vision Video and Urban Heat
Hmm.
back in 2021. And it was that moment, well, that helped me really define and decide, like, okay, when this thing shifts, because I know it's going to shift and I'm going to probably end up being the front person for this band, something started brewing in me back then. I'm no longer going to just sing about random things. Um, the my old vocalist, like she was really great. She was a very poetic person, but she kind of, sang about some things that I didn't really feel like were really, like important, I guess. And there's a place for that, and that's fine. And she was great. But I wanted my voice to be like, okay, this is very specific. Like these are things that we all deal with. Like these are things that you can kind of like maybe take inspiration from to make your life better or someone else around you's life's better. So watching them play opening for both of those bands at the same time because they both had similar selfless messages. But basically, like it was no longer about, hey, look at me. I'm this cool like front person or I'm in a band, whatever. They both had messages that said, hey, there's more to think about using this, and we can use this music to talk about that.
Message, yeah, absolutely.
So those two bands, very specifically, those two bands, I remember having a very intense moment. So we went on first, then I saw Urban Heat, which I'd never really seen before, heard from them, and I was just like blown away. And then Envision Video came on, and it was like the same thing. It was like this one-two punch. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How can I do something kind of like this? And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, I'm not saying that I'm anywhere near that awesome or cool, but like, I want to be, and I want to be able to like give people an opportunity to like feel something other than just, hey, look at me, I'm this cool band. Whatever. That's only part of it's like a tiny sliver of whatever I'm trying to do. Like sure, everybody wants to make cool music and have fun and be and look cool on stage, but like that's really just this tiny portion of really why I'm up out there doing it at this point in my life. Like I realize I'm not like the coolest looking dude in the world, but like at least I can sound and make a message and have a voice.
And I think we're kind of getting to that point where we don't want music to just be uh like a like cool or a front man or just kind of have this sort of
A black hole of
yeah, you want a message. You want to put something out there. And I think that's what's important is because, everybody on the internet wants to be well known, famous, have their face on things, I mean, because that's the way now because social media, that's where you're going to get likes, where it's you're the personality or you're the face or you're this, you're that. And I think what's important is just get the message across, bring something else to the table instead of this sort of superficial bullshit musically. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It totally does. And the thing is there probably is like there probably is a place for that. Like I feel like sometimes you do just want to hear music that's just going to be feel good music, but why not try to do both at the same time? Like and I'm not discounting anybody that makes music just that is superficial because any music that is positive or is helping somebody feel good, that's fine by me. But for me specifically, I have a different agenda and I have this fire that keeps burning,
That's amazing. I love hearing.
telling
Thank
telling me telling
Yeah.
me to do it.
No, that's cool. I'm gonna go and do one last question. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, dude. It's been amazing. I'm so glad you finally got a chance to be on my podcast, dude. I love your music.
Thank you, man.
So glad we hit each other up, and this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I always end my podcast with one last question. Anybody who looks up to your music, listens to your music, anybody's watching this, just to get rid of their bad day or just need a distraction or something, what bit of information do you have for anybody who's listening or watching?
Information like,
Bit of advice. Sorry, did I say information? A bit of advice that you have for anybody who's, watching this or listening to it. What personal advice do you have for anybody who is
hmm,
listening?
um, may your actions like speak louder than any word. Um, and if necessary, use words, but it's not always necessary. Um, Geez, I don't know. They kind of caught me off guard with that
Oh,
one because I have so many things that I believe in right now and things that I really want to be able to say, but anytime somebody asks me, I'm like, blah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just let it move you and move in positivity and love. And really that's I have no aspiration to be famous. I just want to make the best music that's ever made, quoting my favorite, Robert Smith.
amazing. Amazing. Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. It's been amazing to have you on, dude. You're an amazing guest. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine,
Yep.
honestly. Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, man. You have a great day.
Okay, look forward to seeing this. Cheers.